Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia, and I'm one of the facilitators of our beautiful practice. I'd like to begin our practice today by sharing with you a sentiment of metta. Metta is loving kindness, and so we're going to create the conditions for our practice today with an intention of loving kindness. This is a little painting I did on a large sheet of paper. For those of you who are artists out there and you send me paintings and drawings, please know that I often cut them up and I turn them into sentiments of metta. This one reads, "May you feel cherished. May you feel cherished." So let's arrive together, friends. And I'm going to close my eyes. And what I want to encourage as we begin our practice today is to invite the body into a posture where you can receive some cherishing exactly as you are. Tired, blah, skeptical, happy, joyful, bored, annoyed, little lost, successful, achieving. No matter how you are, see if you can be in the body in a way that you can feel cherished. I'm sitting on a cushion, one of which I made, and it's stuffed with something called fabric salad. Tiny, tiny, tiny pieces of scrap fabric that I chopped up because I hate to throw things away. And when you're a seamstress, there's a lot of leftover fabric. So I stuff it into pillows and I'm sitting on one of those cushions. My legs are crossed. I guarantee you they will fall asleep midway through. My eyes are closed. My heart, come into the level of your heart. Where is your heart? Is it tucked in because your shoulders are rolled forward and your belly is kind of hanging out and your spine is sort of in a C shape? If that's your posture right now, no need to change it. Just notice and notice how your heart feels. And if your heart feels a little sunken, let's bring some cherishing by adding a little bit of effort and sitting up a little taller, just a little bit. Nothing too dramatic, nothing too hoity-toity, but sit a little bit taller, a little bit stronger. Maybe engage the belly a little bit. It's not a workout here. It's just a practice of awareness. Roll the shoulders back and down just a wee bit so that the heart lifts. A little cherishing going on here. Take a deep breath. And as a part of cherishing and encouraging the feeling of being cherished, may I share with you a mantra that I created, that I share all the time, and I'd like to offer it to each and every one of you today. Breathing in, you belong here. Breathing out, because you are here. Isn't that so simple? So profound too. Breathing in, you belong here. I belong here. Breathing out, because I am here. I don't have to do anything special, and neither do you. Just be here. That's enough. It's more than enough. And I cherish your presence here, and I cherish your spirit of belonging too. Friends, on Wednesdays, we study Zen masters. And over the years, we've explored the work of Suzuki Roshi, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. We've studied Roshi Joan Halifax, her wonderful book called Standing at the Edge. We've studied a little bit of Thich Nhat Hanh. And now we've taken just a slight little turn away from Zen, and we've picked up a little bit of the Mahayana tradition. And really, it's probably more Theravedic, which is what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word. It's an expression of Buddhism. And the work that we've been reading is a book called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And this is the great work of an 8th century monk. Shantideva was his name. And Shantideva, like the Buddha, lived in India. He was from a wealthy family, like the Buddha. He threw all of that off, all of that material wealth, material comfort, and he wanted to study the practices and principles of Buddhism. He wanted to take on a very simple life so that he could understand the causes and conditions of misery as they arose in him, and by extension, become a vehicle to relieve the misery of the world. He wanted to become a better person so that he could be of service to his fellow men and women. And he was studying at Nalanda University, at the time the world's only university for Buddhism. And he was a rebel. This guy blew off class. He was a loner, as the legend goes. He kind of did his own thing. But the thing that I love about Shantideva is he took the Buddha's teachings to heart. The Buddha said, according to the sutras, that we were to take these practices and principles and see how they come alive in us. My life, my situation, my choices, my legacy, my karma, how do these principles live and breathe in me? And they may appear differently than you, but that's sort of the infinite expression of Buddhism. We're not to try to become like the Buddha. We're not trying here to take on everything he said dogmatically. We're here to take these practices and principles and really look at them and question them and be curious about them. And when we hit a stumbling block, something that doesn't sit right, we can say, oh, wow, would you look at that? I'm irritated by that. I wonder about that. How does that live in me? It's a practice of empowerment. And so Shantideva basically wrote how to become a better person. And that's what we're studying in this book. We've been exploring the 7th chapter, relying on effort. Wise effort is one of the aspects on the Noble Eightfold Path, which is a foundation to this Buddhist practice. We're at the end of the book, and we just have a couple of verses to share today. This whole book is arranged like a long, 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 long poem. And so we read different verses. And there's an aspect of this last section that really bugs me. So I can't wait to talk about it and share it with you. But for now, Let's listen to the words of Shantideva. This is translated by Geshe Gyatso, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. So here's some language from the 8th century as translated by this Tibetan monk. Each time faults such as delusions arise, I will thoroughly chastise myself. I have a problem with that. So we'll get to that. And then focus for a long time on the determination not to let that happen again. Let me read that verse again. Each time faults such as delusions arise, I will thoroughly chastise myself and then focus for a long time on the determination not to let that happen again. In this way, in all situations, I will acquaint myself with mindfulness, sincerely and purely practicing Dharma so that I can protect myself and others from suffering. To ensure that I have the strength for all of this, before I commence, I will recall the instructions on conscientiousness and rise to these tasks with suppleness of body and mind. Just as a piece of cotton moving back and forth is controlled by the movement of the wind, so with my body, speech, and mind controlled by the joy of effort, I will swiftly accomplish all realizations. This concludes the 7th chapter of Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, entitled Relying Upon Effort. So, friends, why the chastising? Why? Each time my faults and flaws and delusions and not enoughness and cravings, each time they arise, why chastise myself? Especially when the end of it is he's talking about a joyful effort. So there seems to be some duality going on here. I'm going to kind of get down on myself for having these very human delusions. And I'm going to include all of that diminishment as part of my joyful practice. I do not resonate with that, friends. And I'm going to be daring and say that this reflects a patriarchal way of thinking. So Shantideva was studying at a university of monks, thousands of young men all around in that culture and in that environment are warriors, and they're battling and they're going to war, and they're whipping themselves into shape, and they're going to task, and the discipline is militant. And that's certainly one way of doing this. It's not my way. So, my way of working with my arising delusions, my cravings, anytime I have a judgment, I shared last week about a weird event in a store, and I was really annoyed. And I found myself so impatient and judgmental. And it was so ridiculous. And then I got mad at myself for being ridiculous. And rather than bring out the whip and start flogging myself, beating myself up, you know, it's just never been very motivating to me. It's never been very encouraging, and it's certainly never been very empowering to beat myself down to a pulp. What I find encouraging and what I find empowering is a spirit of curiosity. Huh, Julia, would you look at that? What is all this impatience about? Is it even about being in the store and dealing with the situation, or is it something else that happened earlier in the day? Maybe it's connected to an interaction you had. Huh, there's that craving again. That's uncomfortable. I don't like that. But there it is. I'm human. I'm going to have a craving repeatedly over and over and over again. So why is it here? Am I trying to soothe something? Some kind of upset, some kind of anxiety? The answer to that question is almost always yes. So then the next bit of curiosity is, will this habit energy help? And for my most pernicious habits, the answer is no. They did at one time, but I know they don't anymore. Or if they do, it's really temporary. It's not enough anymore. So very gently, I say, Julia, this craving that you have and this habit energy that you feel strongly about, that you feel sort of a tug toward, you know, my darling, that this isn't going to work. So, what else can you do? Julia, you're creative. You can find something else to do. What do you want to do? Sky's the limit. No chastising going on, friends. None at all for me. Because that line that in the first verse that I read today, that's the last line, it says, determination not to let that happen again. I have made a commitment to shift my relationship to negative habit energy. I am determined every time to not engage with that negative habit energy because it's not good for me. It doesn't bring out my joy. It dampens my curiosity. It causes suffering in my body. It negatively impacts others potentially. No, not going down that road anymore. And so then when I get to the very end, the last verse, just as a piece of cotton moving back and forth is controlled by the movement of the wind, so with my body, speech, and mind, controlled by the joy of effort, I will swiftly accomplish all realizations. This realization in this moment for the purposes of this meeting is to shift my relationship to my negative habit energy. So I have to be supple. I have to be creative and curious. I have to be willing to move. I have to be willing to meet my fear. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I feel that craving. Uh-oh. That's fear. Okay, Julia, we got this. You know this feeling. You know this fear. You're strong. You're wise. You're creative. Move your body. Maybe even literally connect with the wind. Breathe. I don't have to chastise myself because for me, friends, when I chastise myself, I just fuel my inner critics. And they're already really loud when I'm in states of vulnerability. They tell me I'm not enough. They tell me I'm a loser. They tell me I've been down this road a million times. When am I ever going to learn? I don't I don't need to activate them any more than they're already activated. Instead, what I need to do is give rise to a different voice, that wise voice, that heart-led voice. So let's come back to the body, to the posture. Sit nice and tall and breathe. I am here to understand my relationship to negative habit energy. And in my understanding, I will shift that relationship. And in that shift, I will heal. And in that healing, I create the conditions for more options. Having more options in my life creates the feeling and the experience of freedom. This is a joyful effort. So let's just breathe that in together. Breathing in, breathing out. And let's take a step toward the conclusion of this practice with a reminder that you belong here because you are here. And in being here, you have just exercised some joyful effort to be cherished, to heal, to grow, to understand, to create a new option for yourself. What an amazing thing we've all been able to do here today. Let's end our practice with a dedication of merit. We began our practice with the sentiment of metta, may you feel cherished. And we heard from a beautiful Sangha member about just that gentle inquiry of, wow, when was the last time I felt cherished? And then taking a moment of reflection to identify a very sweet interaction of cherishing. So may you feel cherished and may you cherish not only your precious human life, but the preciousness of life. And in that spirit, may we call in to our practice anybody out there in the world who is still struggling with negative habit energy, manifest in the form of the use, misuse, and abuse of drugs and alcohol. It is a violence to the body and to the mind. And may they be cherished. To anybody who is living on the streets, may they be cherished and find safety, warmth, good food, and affection. To anybody who's in the corrections institutions in jail or prison, may they find moments of being cherished. Family and friends and fellow inmates, even guards, if that's possible, in a mindful, respectful way. Anybody who's in the hospital, who's homesick, anybody who is lost and depressed, may the time that we've spent here today create energy that goes out into the world, finds any living being who feels alone and lost. May this energy find them, wrap them up in a spirit of being cherished. Until we meet again, friends, have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here. Namaste.